This week, I'm going to battle at Cincinnati Comic-Expo. This is my first time attending this show, and I'm bringing a heavy load with me in order to put a theory to test, which will determine what I will bring with me to New York Comic-Con next week, where I plan to take on the 1500 comic book battle for the third time this year without the help of a sales team. I'm going to attempt to sell 100 graphic novels over the course of 2.5 days in an uncertain environment. This is the first time I've ever attempted such a feat as a comic showman. The question is, can I pull it off? Stick around to find out as I attempt to move mountains on this week's episode of Onward with Onrie. Going into this show, I honestly didn't care if I could sell out. I was counting on the fact that I wouldn't. I've never been able to sell more than 60 graphic novels at a convention. This weekend, I'm going to try and sell 100. I had no idea what to expect from this show. I heard about it before, but I had no idea what attendance was going to look like. This was a risk, and I was counting on it to pay off. Mood dictates a lot of different things. For example, if you're in a good mood, you might be more inclined to go the extra mile while working because you're feeling confident. It makes you want to achieve more. But what happens when you're in a shitty mood? How do you manage yourself in a way that you don't start giving off bad vibes to your customers? My performance on the first day of the show was solid, but despite this, I was still pretty convinced that I couldn't sell more than 70 graphic novels at this show, and I was okay with that. Well, then Saturday morning came, and I woke up feeling kinda down. Don't ask me why, because I honestly couldn't tell you. Maybe I was tired, or maybe I had a bad dream. Or maybe something wasn't aligned with me chemically or spiritually. Regardless, I knew I had to get to the show and do my thing. I got myself some coffee and started making my way to the convention center, which was 20 minutes from my hotel. One of the beautiful things about this particular show was that it was only a 5-hour drive to get there. And because I drove in with all of my inventory, my only costs were 2 tanks of gas, my booth, and my hotel room. I had absolutely no reason at all to be down on Saturday morning because I was already in the black, but I just was. And then things took a turn for the worse. As I exited the highway, my cup of coffee tipped over and half of it leaked into my cup holder. This was totally my fault, but now I had a car that was full of coffee. Fortunately, none of it got on me, but the fact that this happened didn't help my mood much. It was sort of like a bad omen that could have really affected my performance for the day. And then I had a conversation with someone over the phone that ended up really frustrating me. And now I had to get on the floor and sell comics for the next 10 hours. The odds were totally stacked against me, and had I caved in, I would have easily convinced myself that I was destined to fail. And maybe I was, but I wasn't going to accept that fate. If I was truly destined to fail, then I would not make it easy. As soon as I stepped out on that floor, nothing I felt mattered anymore. I was there to provide satisfaction to my customers, and that's where I dispensed my energy. When I got battered down with rejection, I ignored it and kept slinging while reminding myself that it didn't matter if I sold out. That relief made it easier for me to handle my negative thoughts. I knew that I didn't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders, and that no matter what happened, I would survive this show and live to fight another day. The day ended magnificently, and though I didn't sell out of anything completely, I made some major headway. If Sunday ended up being as good as today was, I might even be able to sell through all of my inventory. By this point, I had already sold over 70 graphic novels, so what was another 30? I could do it. I knew it. And if I couldn't, well then I'd get as close as possible. Sunday was going to put me to the test of whether or not I could move this mountain. Now remember how my day started? I spilled coffee in my car and it was still there. On top of that, I was feeling bummed out. Well, now that I performed well, I was no longer feeling bummed out, so that solved that problem. Now all I had to do was clean up that coffee. On my way out of the convention center, I grabbed a bunch of napkins and wiped everything down. There, problem solved. The lesson here, victory seekers, is that sometimes we might feel like the world is out to get us, and that everything happening around us is targeted at us. Have no fear, it's not. The world doesn't give a shit about you, and don't think of that as a bad thing. What matters is that you're in control of your faculties. Just focus on what you're trying to do, And remember that every problem has a solution. Remember to breathe. Remember to give yourself some reprieve too. By no means should you ever push yourself to the point of having a mental breakdown. Absolutely nothing is worth that. Love and take care of yourself, and you'll be amazed at how much you can overcome. Working in comics is similar to running a marathon. It's not about how fast you get there, but what you learn as you continue your journey. That is the true path of the warrior. In order to become strong, you must have resolve to constantly improve yourself and to seek to perfect your imperfections. Doing this will no doubt give you an edge when facing overwhelming odds. By Sunday afternoon, I had sold through all of my single issues and was now left with only 24 graphic novels, and I still had 4 hours to move them. I decided to just focus on this and sell as much as I could. By 3 p.m., I had 10 left, and at this point, I was certain that I could sell out. I was surging with confidence by this point and kept fighting my way to the sellout, and it finally happened by 4:30 p.m. By the end of the show, I had proven to myself that I could overcome the challenge of selling 100 graphic novels at a single convention, and now I'm ready to do it again next week at New York Comic-Con. All right, victory seekers, stay tuned as I prepare to take on the greatest challenge in my career as a comic showman by myself at one of the largest conventions in the entire country. Next week, we're flying to Manhattan to do battle, and I'm taking you on the front lines with me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some work to do. See you next week, and until then, onward to victory!